So in 1992, a movie came out. It was called A Few Good Men. From that movie came the famous line from Jack Nicholson where he said, "You can't handle the truth." The whole movie's theme is actually based off of the idea of the challenge of trying to find truth. The trailer describes Tom Cruise's character in it as, quote, the man who will stop at nothing to find the truth. And it's funny because in some manners, we really just don't care much at all about the truth. I would beg people at times, even now, search out the truth about Jesus Christ. Search out the truth about the cross. Search out if the resurrection really happened. Because I'm honestly so convinced that if people would investigate the truth in matters like those, that they would find that there is so much evidence contained there that they would turn immediately to Jesus Christ. And sadly, what I've found is that most people really don't want to put their time and their energy into looking into matters like that. We're constantly asking ourselves the question as pastors and as church leaders, what can we do to drum up people's interest and participation in Bible studies and teachings where they can hear and they can grow in the truths about God's Word? Because for many, those truths, they just aren't as important as the many other things that we've got going on in our lives. And that's really not a cheap plug to promote Zoom Bible studies. However, I will tell you this, we do have a bunch that we offer if you are interested in any of them. All right, maybe it was a cheap plug. But I tell you, what I share that part about truth with you because I want to contrast some things that we do pour our minds into searching the truths of. There are some things we pour into. And none are more popular, I would say, right now than trying to figure out the truths about the coronavirus. Countless hours are being poured into trying to find out, hey, what's true about it and what really isn't. Even by you and even by me. On Monday, I actually spent a couple hours doing as much open research, like unbiased research as I possibly could, to try to look into some unbiased truths regarding things. For the purpose of trying to get an understanding of the possibilities of when churches might be able to resume business as usual, I guess we'll call it. And I try to put in a couple hours every other week or so. I'm not always successful, just looking into those things. And one thing I have found is this, and you've probably found the same thing. I'm sure you have. There is a ton of information out there. And how are we supposed to know what is true and what isn't true? And I don't know if we'll ever know, really, what is completely true and what wasn't completely true. But there are a lot of different people that are touting that they know the real truth, that they have the real truth behind things. So the first thing to know, think about this with me. The first thing to know when you do marriage counseling is this. There's his side, there's her side. And the truth? Well, it's somewhere floating around in the middle. And we could all agree with that, especially when we're mediating disputes between a couple different individuals. We would say that's really the truth. It's somewhere in the middle. But with other things like coronavirus information, I've noticed our tendency is to grab onto the truth that we want to believe and tout that as the real truth, rather than looking into both sides and considering the possibility that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And as we move forward in these videos, we're going to look at some of these in specific, and we're going to discuss how we as the church should be reacting as we lead maybe to the ultimate question of when is it time for the church to resume services? Do we at any point choose to go against the governor's edicts as is represented by Daniel in Daniel chapter 6? But for today, I want us all to just kind of understand something. There are some things that actually are just truth, and others that are quite simply lies. Some absolute truths. There really are. Truth is not always in the middle. John 17, 17, Psalms 19, Psalms 119 all remind us that the Bible is always truth. And you don't have to look for another religion to try to balance it. Jesus claimed to be truth, absolute truth in John 14:6. The only truth that can set you free in John 8:32. But what I'm saying is that there are a lot of other things out there, especially regarding the whole coronavirus pandemic, that we really don't know the full truth on. And we have to be careful not to misrepresent truth by pretending that we do know the full truth on some of it. And one thing that the church absolutely cannot do is misrepresent church. Once we start to misrepresent truth, the world will no longer trust the church. And when they do that, they will no longer trust, you got it, our God. And there are some sermons and information that's coming from pastors, and it's intriguing, and it may fit our perspective of what is happening, but some are misconstruing truths just enough so that later on they're going to be found out, those sermons, to not have been quite perfectly true. And that's going to be represented in the world's mind as lies. The church lies, they're going to say. And they will refer back to propagandas laid out by certain pastors in certain churches. And we have to be careful in what we represent and what we say so that we don't tarnish God in any way, including a way like that. Does that mean the churches should avoid politics, or we should avoid taking a stand? Don't be a dork. No. Of course, we need to take those stands. And it just means that we have to make sure that when we're speaking, it is absolute truth as often as we're able to speak absolute truth, rather than opinion, even if our opinions are based on most likely scenarios. So, if and when we get to the point that we decide to break governor's edict, we really better be sure that we're doing it off of facts, not to fail to mention the will of God as well, rather than off skewed misinformation that coincidentally fits my own personal perceptions. I hope that really makes sense. We'll see you tomorrow.